Woodman Circle Home. What is it about this place that draws us? Sitting there on a hill on 14, 17, and 56 in Sherman, Texas, it beckons, almost like a mother calling for a lost child. Tall tales have existed about the Woodman Circle Home for years. The truth, while interesting, is not quite up to the standard of the tall tales that are told. The Woodman Circle Home was established as a home for orphans and the aged. Contributions were solicited from all over the United States, and by 1925, $12,000 was raised to help pay for the costs. That same year, the Supreme Forest Woodman Convention appropriated $100,000 for the project, and an additional $110,000 was appropriated in 1927. A 240-acre site near Sherman was purchased in 1928. The next year, 40 more acres were donated by Texas members of the organization. The first home was dedicated on June 25, 1930. A second unit, named the Pennsylvania Building, was completed in 1932 for use by the children. Half the cost of the building was donated by members in Pennsylvania, thus the name.
About 3 months ago, there was a fire that was started over here in the west wing. And then in 1990, the Pennsylvania building burnt. And then in 1990 something else, the garage apartment burnt.
Now,
So-
all those fires were set.
Yes.
It was all
every one of
arson.
them.
The Woodman Home was established for dependent members of the organization. Persons would not be admitted who had money or property of any kind, or any income from any source, unless, before they were admitted, they surrendered to the Woodman all such money and property and income. In the event the applicant later became possessed of money, property, or income, that also was transferred to the society. In exchange for this, the Woodman Circle Home took care of the elderly and orphans of the organization until such time as they passed on or grew to the age where they could take care of themselves. In fact, the organization operated a cemetery on the grounds, which now, although separated by 1417, still exists today.
That David Koresh was one of his followers.
Really?
And when they broke up, David Koresh went to Waco and this Reverend Sherman went to California. Now that was a story told to me.
Right.
And I have a lot of people ask me about the kid that got killed in here. There was a 4-year-old child that belonged to Reverend Sherman's group.
Uh-huh.
And supposedly she fell down the elevator shaft. So I don't know.
It's just a story.
In the 1970s, an organization led by the Reverend Ariel Sherman purchased the Woodman Circle Home. In fact, this is probably the source of the rumors about a cult having lived in the home at one time. In the early 1970s, the newspaper headlines were full of stories about the Jim Jones tragedy in Guyana and the Manson murders in California. This, coupled with a different type of non-mainstream church moving into the building, probably did result in a lot of talk and rumors. The Reverend Sherman and his Woodman Circle Tabernacle closed up shop, reportedly because Reverend Sherman owed a great deal of money to several individuals, including the city of Sherman. The Reverend Sherman moved to a different state and established another church, where eventually he faced charges along with the mother of a church member who refused to seek medical treatment for a young child who had a tumor that grew to over the size of a basketball. He further outraged the community by trying to raise the child from the dead at her funeral.
But as far as a tunnel being from this building to the Pennsylvania building,
Not true.
No truth. There's no basement where they did electrical shocks to people. There's no
this place
Still-
was never this place was never a mental institution. It was
Never,
always an
never.
orphanage, basically,
Basically,
for the
yes,
Woodman.
yes.
Or if for a short time it was rented by the Reverend Sherman, and then
Yeah.
they moved him out.
Well, he left one night because he owed the city of Sherman lots of money.
Okay.
So he packed up his father's,
batteries, would you?
And you worked here from what years?
from about 64 till about 71.
And what did you do here?
I was a nurse's aide.
You were a nurse's aide.
I worked in the top part. The top part was the infirmary.
Okay.
That's where ladies was kept. Well, some of them was ambulatory,
Uh-huh.
but most of them was bedfast. And the ladies that lived here was ambulatory. You could
Okay.
not be bedfast here.
Okay. Now, did they school kids here too, or did they go to
Mhm.
regular school? They were schooled in here
Oh
too.
no, I'm sorry. They went to school.
They went to school in
Mhm.
Sherman. And this is the original part of this is the original part of the house that was built in the
Yes.
20s that we're looking at here. And then
This
this
was built in 1920,
okay.
29, and 30. And it cost $150,000 to build that.
Back then,
I gotta
which was
get
a
rid
lot
this
of money.
phone. I can't talk. It's so. Okay. Now I'll start with my story. Mrs. Talley was the national secretary. Mrs. LaRocca was the president.
Mm-hmm.
They come from Omaha, Nebraska, and Missouri.
Okay.
They had a dream, and the dream came to Sherman, Texas. The reason why it came to Sherman, Texas was Mrs. Talley's family was from Garland.
Okay.
They had narrowed it down between Houston and Sherman. They liked this place because it's on the highest hill in Sherman, to have the breezes, the southern breezes. Like I said, this was the main building, and it cost $150,000, and women did this. And they got funds from all over the United States, which how many states was back in the 30s?
48.
48, okay. So all the states sent money. They would tell, the Woodman Circle Home would tell them that they had a child that's 9 years old that wore size 8, a size 5 shoe. At Christmas time, all these places in the United States would send a child clothes size 8, tennis shoes, boys and girls could come here. And the way that they come here is if something happened to their mother and daddy. They were sent here from all over the United States. Again, this is the only home that was built for the Supreme Forest Woodman Circle, which was a branch off of the Woodman of the World.
Right.
So this is where they come. Well, back, it started getting more and more ladies in, so then they built this building in 1941, and the ladies came here. You could not come here because you thought this was a pretty place and you thought this is where you wanted to live. This was a very refined place. You had to have money to get into this place.
Hey, to live there?
To live here. Like, you couldn't come in till you 65 years of age. If you had any kind of oil wells, stocks, money like that that was coming in, you had to sign it over to the Woodman Circle Home.
Are you serious?
Yes.
And in exchange, they took care of you
Right.
until you
Medically,
died.
Doctors. They even have a cemetery right behind us.
So, in some respects, it was like a nursing home for its time.
Kinda, yeah.
But children were here too.
Yes. And the mother and father, back in the 30s, if you'll dig up your history, a lot of people died of tuberculosis. And the children were just made orphans. Well, the mother had bought certificates to get into the Supreme Forest Woodman Circle. They knew a place was going to be built, but they didn't know when. And they knew they would be taken care of. And they knew that if something happened to them, that their children would be taken care of the rest of their life and not have to go to an adopted mother and father. That they could come out here, get their schooling, get their college, and live in a home environment. That's when they built the Pennsylvania building in the back. They
Okay.
built it in 31 so they could take the children away from the old ladies and put them into their home. So that's why the Pennsylvania building is out there. And that's the reason why over 100 orphans has come through this place, and they're all very well to do now. they went and succeeded in life.
Are any of them still left in the area?
Oh yeah, Mrs. Pelly is still here, Lillian Pelly. She came out here when she was 17 months old, and the age was supposed to be, I think, like 18 months old and up, but they went ahead and took her. So this is definitely her home. She's a very, very nice lady. There was 4 different superintendents, but the one that I worked for was Mr. and Mrs. Alexander, and Mr. Alexander was the brother of Mrs. Talley. Again, they come from Garland, and they come up here, and they became the superintendents of this place. So there's a lot of history. I could talk for hours and hours and hours. This place was never a place for insane people. They never lived here. They never come out here. There's never been any shock treatments done. There's never been any ghosts out here. There's still not any ghosts out here. I was on the police department at one time, and there's cops out here all the time. And I've run through this building in the dark and never been afraid.
I'd be afraid to run through it now.
I would be deathly afraid of it now. There's holes in the floor. It is so dangerous, and the floor is kind of giving in. And
Is this one in this one is the floors giving in?
Both of them.
Both of them.
But see,
It's all the
roof,
water.
Yeah, it's the environment.
Said this room, what room was this? Was this like an atrium?
This is the sunroom.
Okay.
And it used to be open, and the bus would come, the school bus would come through here and pick the kids up. They would come down these steps and get in the bus so that they wouldn't get wet and cold. So they closed it in later years.
And just made a sunroom out of it.
Each end of this building had a sunroom so that the ladies could come and get their sun without coming outside.
And this was just a gazebo, just a place to sit.
Beautiful. It had something pretty. And it had beautiful furniture right over there.
Now this was was this the dining room back here?
That's the dining room.
It's all right, you're fine.
And then upstairs is the infirmary. And not many people know this, and I've got pictures of it. I should have brought it out. Hairbrain. Each building was to be built in a Latin cross. And a Latin cross is one that's like that instead of more like this. A Latin cross goes out like that. And there's rooms this way and then rooms back this way.
Okay.
And the west wing is the same way. But now the Pennsylvania building is built in a U shape.
Okay.
It's one of 10 buildings that was supposed to have been built for children.
Okay, and that's the only one they got done.
Mrs. Talley died, and so the rest of it she never did fulfill her dream.
Right.
But her dream was this here. No.
Died with
When
her?
she died, it died. And right up there was our office. This lower part right here, that was the nurse's office right here.
In the corner?
The rest of it was. The front part of it, the ladies could get up a little bit and kind of take care of themselves, but this back part, they's all bed fast.
And you said the caretaker lived in
Yeah.
this building, and the car stayed underneath,
Uh-huh.
and actually got a fire. Well,
The
kind of a
car
fire
stayed
escape.
underneath?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 3-car garage with
Yeah.
living quarters
Wow.
above.
Yeah.
And you said they used to raise their own cattle,
Hogs, cows, chickens,
had a dairy.
had a dairy, and the guy that took care of all the animals and everything lived down this road. Right down there was another house, and then over here was a 2-story house.
Look at that house in the middle of the
Yeah, we wanted, and that one caught on fire. I don't know how it caught on fire. That was like in the 20s or 30s when it burned up. They had their own log cabin down at Laurel Creek. That's where the kids went swimming, and where the ladies, if they wanted to go swimming, they'd go down to Laurel Creek. The Woodman Circle Home owned it. So even the home committee, when they would come, they would go down there and swim and everything. So it was something else.
So this must be what's left of the path going to the house.
Yeah.
You get out here with a tractor.
Got yourself lucky because I didn't.
They had it just for the women and the children to 1971. Yeah. And then it shut down because they merged back with Woodman of the World, and the state of Texas came in and said, your rooms are too small, your halls are too narrow, and either widen it or we'll shut it down. And the lady just didn't have the mind
Money.
like Mrs. Talley. Mrs. Talley was the reason why this place was here. And she was a very smart lady, very.
Really? Then after 1969, what did it?
71. It shut down and it went to 5 lawyers here in town, and they couldn't afford to keep it up, so then they sold it to one savings and loans after another, after another, after another.
Right as they were going through their big mess.
Uh-huh.
And the lawyer that finally ended up with it was
Yeah. He came out here one late afternoon, and we were out here. We had caught all kinds of people out here. And of course, I went up to him and I asked him, I said, can I help you? And he said, no. He said, I'm going to buy this place. And I said, sure you are. Do you know how many nuts I meet that says that? And he said, but I really am. I said, okay. But he really didn't.
Really?
And you don't have any idea on the sale price by the time he got a hold of it?
No, I don't know how much I don't ask him. He's a real good friend of mine, but I don't ask him. He's got plans for it.
Well, you can tell me about
I'm sure.
But now the
His choice.
how many acres is it?
13 now. It was 240.
Yeah, so that's definitely.
and you said originally the sale price on it when the original group bought it was 3.1.
3.1 million.
A lot of money.
But it was, the windows was intact. The roof was fine. The doors could lock.
Well, I remember it back in the 80s. They did a haunted house in it,
Tell me, I was out here.
and I wanted to kick myself because I didn't come out here.
I was on the police department then, and the reserves came out here, and we kind of watched it and everything, but still kids got passes, there.
And you said this building was
For children.
this
in
was the
the
children's.
superintendent.
Okay. And this was the Pennsylvania building, and it
This
was
was Pennsylvania.
constructed with funds from Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Okay.
The state of Pennsylvania built this because they came up with funds. It cost $31,000 to build this.
Okay.
31. A lot of money.
It was then for sure.
But can you imagine back in the these ladies paid $150,000?
What were you saying?
I'm going in. Wish me luck.
No desire. Go in there.
I want to go in there.
picture just got straight.
Oh, wow.
And this is Pennsylvania House.
Oh, here's the big picture.
That's what's left of the floor.
You want a real picture?
Not brave enough to walk on that floor to get a picture.
I'd say I would walk around and leave
This thing is
it.
in
It's far
terrible
on the side of the
condition.
house. Oh, it's on this side of the room. Can't really tell on the digital. Stuff is.
Kind of see the floor, ceilings, and door frames. Oh, did you find one?
No, I'll just look. I don't know what this is.
It's probably heat.
Huh?
It's probably heat. Did you think this place would be in this bad a shape?
Did I think?
Yeah,
No.
I didn't either.
You know what?
This is a shame, actually. All the fixtures have either been sold or stolen. There are
Is that
no.
what she said?
Well, no, but there's none left. So somebody somewhere's got a ton of them, or
You'd always put it in your article.
this building does not look. There's nothing left to steal. I mean, there's no point in coming in here if you want to try to steal some Art Deco stuff. There's nothing here.
No.
There's
Unless you
nothing
want,
left.
you know, the floor.
Unless you want a piece of floor or something. That's true.
I'm just so disappointed. Wow. I can't believe the condition. Oh, check this out. Look. Did you get a picture from in that room back there? The one this girl was standing in.
The one the girl was. I don't guess so.
The Supreme Forest Woodman Circle was merged with the Woodmen of the World, effective January 1st, 1965. The Supreme Forest Woodman Forest was another fraternal benefit society with its headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska. The members were primarily women. The Circle, for many years, operated the Woodman Circle Home, but after the Woodman Circle merged with the Woodmen of the World, the home was only operated for a short period of time. In fact, they accepted no new residents to the home after July of 1966. The Woodman Circle Home was closed June the 1st, 1971, and the remaining 22 residents were moved into a Sherman nursing home. Even after the Woodman Circle closed, the Woodman Circle Home in Sherman, Texas, and the last few residents went to the Sherman nursing home, the Woodman Circle continued to pay for their expenses until they had all passed away. The last resident passed away in 1985 and is buried at the Woodman Circle Cemetery on 1417. I want to thank Linda Robertson personally for taking us on a tour of this once fine estate that did so much good for so many. It is worthy to note that the area is kept under constant surveillance and trespassers are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. They do this not out of malice, but simply for people's own protection. The grounds are in a terrible state of disrepair and are extremely dangerous. It is not unlikely that someone could be severely hurt or even killed if they took a wrong turn. The danger of this is especially heightened during nighttime.
There's a really good picture of that house. Like looking that way.
Yeah, that's heat.
Is that?
Yeah. For those brave enough to come up this way. Ooh,
Oh, it's okay. I walked all over it.
I'm glad there's no. It's got not summer chiggers would be eating us alive. This is the Pennsylvania house, and we're going to look
Check this out.
toward the
Isn't
main
that a
house.
pretty view?
Oh, that's your.
That's my boyfriend. And our roommate. Hey! Up here. Up here. Go down here and come up that way. The way this girl's coming.
These are closets. And it was also the garage for the Woodman Circle. They had 3 cars, and the caretaker lived above the garage. As you can see, there's been a fire here. The second story has collapsed. It's in pretty bad condition. This is underneath the dining room. Maybe part of the kitchen or the boiler room or something similar. As you can see, the floor is in bad shape. There's the stairs going down into this. Got a lot of collapses on this side of the house because of the fire. The basement of the facility, as you can tell, it's in pretty rough shape. Piers have sank quite a little bit. This is the west wing, which would have been the end of the modern Navy Stadium. The back side of the infirmary and the dining room. And there's the main building. This down here are the dorms. So metal, concrete ramp leading up to this west wing actually.
Okay.